And here we go. It is the Rebel's Edge. I'm Pete Najarian. That is not John Najarian, unless my eyes have really changed a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, Glenn Fife, looking fantastic. He's got a hell of a lot of hair. Doesn't have a goatee. That's the only thing I don't like about what's going on there. And then, of course, we've got Jared. He's running everything from the Bulls to the Bears. And a day like today, it's a bit of a brawl. But, it's kind of going back and forth. So we'll figure it all out. And why is that? Well, we're going to talk about that in the macro minute. How are you? What's going on?
I'm good, brother.
Glenn.
Yeah, no, it's been great. We're working hard here at Market Rebellion and cranking out these UOA trades lately have been on fire. I tell you what, and it just makes it even more exciting as we got the Fed coming up here in just a moment. And we're knee deep in earnings season. So
yeah, we've gotten into we got financials kind of mostly out of the way. Things still drag along or whatever there. But now all of a sudden this week we start getting into all the technology stuff. Last night it was Microsoft. Everybody was waiting for that. That was actually going to be huge. Google, which we'll talk about. I will never call it Alphabet. Just so you know, Glenn, I refuse. I don't understand it. I never thought it made any sense at all. But, it's kind of like Meta. I can't,
exactly.
The Meta thing's still the dumbest thing ever. But anyway, we'll get through all of that. And then we got a lot of stuff to cover, including some great sports stuff that I'm excited about. So
it's going to be fun.
Yep, we're going to get after it. And we're going to start off right now with the macro minute. And here's what we've got. Glenn, today is exactly what you said. It's Fed Day. So we've got all these earnings. We had earnings this morning again. You had names like Coca-Cola that actually just crushed it. Last night, we already talked about, but you had Google, you had Microsoft, and then what happened today. But now it's all about the Fed. They will raise a quarter, but the big deal is, what will Powell say now? Will they maybe go for another pause, or will they go hit us one more time for a quarter? What do you think, Glenn?
Yeah, I think it's going to be hawkish. He's been hawkish, and they even alluded to 2 hikes for throughout the rest of the year here. And this is the first one, and I think we're going to still see that second one. I think he'll talk about it. I think the real thing coming out of this decision here is, does he allude to an additional one after that? Not sure if that's going to happen, but we've seen the consumer be resilient here. We've seen unemployment be resilient. We've seen housing. And then the numbers and the statements from Delta, Hilton, et cetera, of just how the consumers continued to hang in there and even at higher debt levels, but they're still there and they're still spending. So it'll be interesting to see what he has to say about that today.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of conflicting things going on for sure. And we're going to find out a lot more about that. Next, we've got ourselves the Fantastic Future.
Fantastic Futures.
Our man, Jared, he is the man. I'm going to go to a topic that Jared's heard me talk about way too many times, but it is, I think, the thing to talk about in the futures right now. And I'm talking about energy. And when I say that, it's oil, it's nat gas. Hey, you know what? You might even sprinkle in a few other things that are actually contributing to that whole thing. You ever heard of coal? Well, Chinese continue on this huge energy push, and they're pushing with coal. And they're saying, the heck with everybody else. But the point I want to make is this. Crude keeps kind of flirting closer and closer, Glenn, to $80. I think we will go through that. I said that last week or earlier this week, actually, with Larry Kudlow. I think energy is going to have a pretty good run in the second half, and it's going to be because of the fact that OPEC cut back 2 million barrels a day. That's a lot in two different times. So I think that we're going to continue to see this move in crude go to 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83. I think we'll be in the low to mid 80s very soon.
Yeah, and I think that everyone's kind of seeing that, right? We've heard it. A lot of the hedge fund analysts talk about it on TV, just how they could see this energy market move higher. And I also, just to harp on some other things in the futures market, I mean, copper, oats, orange juice, sugar, all these things that impact the inflation, the consumer, have just been bouncing here as of late, just like the oil has. And I think a lot of those are going to continue higher as well.
All right. I totally agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. All right. We're going to go on to some of the stocks that we want to cover today. And we're going to cover 4 of them for you. And the first one's going to be Google. Now, Google, on the early shot absolutely exploded to the upside, and we hit new 52-week highs right around 131, not quite at 131, but we got right up and pushing against it. Then we started to ease back a little bit. Now, why did we get such a big jump, 6-7% to the upside? Well, revenues beat, but that was kind of probably expected to some degree. It was the cloud, and a lot of people were looking, and for a long time, I'm one of them who said, I'm sort of surprised that Google has lagged. They haven't been able to catch up to Amazon and Microsoft and some of the others. Well, they're making a little bit of a move. The cloud revenue is looking very strong. And I'll tell you what, Glenn, I think when you look at YouTube and some of the ad strength there and the ad strength that they've got at Google itself on the search side, all of those are good reasons. And the daggone thing's too cheap. It's made a run. It's still a very inexpensive PE stock right now, Glenn.
Yeah, and I think everyone's seeing that, right? With the stock up 6-7% here now. I was also surprised by their growth in the consumer devices and subscriptions area, right? You talked about YouTube, but what about YouTube TV? They now have Sunday NFL Ticket, which they're charging, I think, $300, cheaper than what Dish was. But I think you're going to see a lot of growth continue there. I think it was up 24% year over year. And we're talking their Google Home, Nest, the Fitbit, and then that YouTube TV that we're seeing there. I think that's going to continue to grow as well, along with the cloud division.
Yeah, absolutely. Next, we're going to hit Union Pacific. We're going to go into the rails. And this is an interesting one, Glenn. When you look at the numbers they put up, they were pretty bad. Let's be honest. The numbers themselves weren't good. So you'd ask, well, why is the stock going up so much today? It's up like 8, 9, 10%. Here's why. Because you've got an old veteran who came from Canadian National, who absolutely understands, and there are hedge funds out there who said, you know what? Your CEO stinks. He hasn't done his job. We've been lagging for a decade, and we need a change at the top. So they grabbed somebody who's already been there before but left, and now all of a sudden he will become the CEO in just a couple of weeks. It's sometime in early August. So I think that's something pretty interesting. I think everybody's very excited about that. And can he make the turn? I mean, that's something we'll have to wait and see, but he certainly is a well-respected guy throughout the business. I think in this particular case, this is somebody, when you look at the PE world and you look at the hedge fund world and they want to place this guy or that, I think this was the right move, Glenn. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, everyone seems to love the guy. He's the old chief operating officer there. Coming back, like you mentioned, I think the big question is too around labor costs, right? Can he control labor costs as the demand for higher wages just continues to steamroll in some of these companies? And on top of that, you have them just in this last report alluding to lower consumer demand. So we'll see if he can do it. And I think a lot of people are really happy that he's in this position now. So we'll see.
Now we're going to jump to Pac West. We've talked about this name, but not in a long time. This was one of those highlighted names way back into March when everything was falling apart in the regional bank world. People were concerned about everybody, Silicon Valley Bank, and on and on and on and on. Well, Pac West is one of those names that was part of that. Now we're seeing this combination coming together, the Bank of California and Pacific West getting together. Could be pretty interesting, Glenn, and I think a lot of people are pretty excited about that. Now, here's the interesting thing. Yesterday, Pac West just got slammed to the downside. It was down like 27%. Today, right back up there, up about 27%, holding somewhere near where it's been ever since those March, the sell-offs, and somewhere right around 10. What they've done is they've gotten themselves into a position by combining these two where they've got deposits. They had to sell off some assets, get themselves into a great spot. But I think this is actually a very good sign of some strength in putting these two behemoths together. What do you think of this one at this point?
Yeah, I kind of had a little inkling into this just about a month ago. My own credit union actually bought out a smaller credit union out in the Houston area. And I just thought, hey, that's something that I could see a lot more of that happening, right? Some of these mergers of the smaller banks coming together, trying to create a little bit of bigger bank to become more resilient when it comes to competing, especially against the larger banks that we have out there, the big 4 or 5, right? So I think you're going to continue to see this as the year goes on, and I wouldn't be surprised to see many, many more deals like this occur.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we might see a few more of these coming down the pike. We'll see. Time will tell. All right, next, we're going to hit this one. How about Snap? Now, we don't talk about this name a lot. The only time it ever seems to come up is around earnings. Well, I'll tell you this, a good thing was we had a bit of a nice tip just a few weeks ago when we were sitting there, and all of a sudden we were looking and we're like, hey, there's some pretty big puts being bought in this thing. I wonder what the thought is right now here. Well, that thought was right because they came out, their guidance was terrible. Their numbers overall were not all that good, but I will say this. The one thing they did have is their daily active users. Those numbers were pretty impressive, actually. They built upon that. They added a great number there, but it's still a struggle. They're still having a problem with growth. When you look at this company, between 8 and 13 is where the stock has been. Today, it's down anywhere from 18 to 20%, getting absolutely hammered to the downside. What do you think about this one? And I love the fact that we had the tip off, and you mentioned it earlier, but the options have been telling us the direction, and the direction they were telling us was, hey, we're buying puts. This stock is going lower.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, unusual option activity has just been on fire as of late, and we're seeing it right here with Snap down 20% today. The thing is I don't know where those active users are coming from. Is it, the 8 to 13-year-old range? Because everywhere I look, nobody that I know is using the app. I haven't used it in over a decade, and I'm 32. So, where is that coming from? I mean, I just don't see them really being able to compete with the other big dogs in the social space, like Meta, Twitter. Google has always wanted to be in this space, Pete. Do they start looking at Snap here, right? I mean, they failed before, and I could see them trying to make a move here, but I don't know. I think it's appropriately down 20%. We'll see if they can recover here, but it's very interesting, and it'll be interesting to see that story play on as these other guys compete even more, especially between Meta and Twitter.
That could get interesting. You're right. And it's been talked about in the past, and who knows? I mean, maybe at the right price, maybe there is something to be done there. Maybe Google says, you know what, let's scratch this one more time and see what's going on here. I'll tell you what bothers me, though, is North America itself. That's 64% of the revenue there. That was down 12%. That's not a good sign. I mean, that's a big chunk, and that's something I think that Google would say, well, what did they do wrong? And if they can figure that out, maybe they would get interested and get a lot more interested than they are probably right now. All right.
Hey, Pete, real quick, let's not forget, though, people can get in on that unusual option activity, right? Just go to Market Rebellion /bang, and you can get a nice little taste of what that unusual option activity, how it's been on fire lately. So check it out.
People have been loving that. You're great at doing that. That's a nice little shot that you threw out there right there. All right, next, we're going to go to sports. Glenn, you were in the NFL at one point in time. You and I both were in the NFL. Long distance apart, of course, but you were there. You were there with Houston. You understand all the things that are going on, the players, the this, the that. You've even got to be shocked because I don't remember. What was the last year you were in the NFL? You were part of the NFL.
2016.
So 2016. Well, when you think about that, 7 years ago, think about this. What were some of the contracts at that point in time? Because what I'm seeing right now is absolutely off the charts. I do understand totally. The money is there. If the money is there, these teams are willing to spend it. These are multi-billionaires, of course, that own these teams. They're extremely aggressive. But I see Justin Herbert just signed a 5-year, $262.5 million contract. That's bigger than all the other quarterbacks. And as far as what his payment is, I understand Patrick Mahomes has a 10-year, $450 million contract. Well, that's nothing compared to this. That's $45 million a year. These guys are all making $50+ million a year. When you look at all the signings that we've seen from Jalen Hurts to Lamar Jackson, I mean, unbelievable what we're seeing. And I just want to run these by you. So you've got Christian McCaffrey, right? $17 million. He's a running back. Nobody else is going to pay a running back anything close to that. We are already seeing Saquon Barkley and some of these other guys just trying to get something. Saquon got 11 million, maybe. That's with incentives. So, but I'll tell you what, McCaffrey's worth every penny of his.
Absolutely.
Cooper Kupp's making 26 million. Some of these positions that didn't used to get paid what they're getting now, it's just off the charts what's going on. So tell me, and by the way, you got to talk about your old guy, your guy D-Hop, and what he signed, because I think that makes Tannehill, I talked about it earlier this week, it makes him a hell of a lot better quarterback than he was last year.
Yeah, for sure. That's a huge upgrade that they're getting over there at the Titans. And he's a hell of a player. I mean, I don't think he's been appreciated the way he should have been, but obviously it didn't work out as well for him in Arizona. And I think they're going to put together a great team. And Tannehill needs it, right? He's on the hot seat there. And a lot of guys are as well over there in Tennessee. So very interesting to see how that'll play out. But I mean, this market for these players is just out of control. You talked about Justin Herbert, and I mean, he's going to be living the life in LA. I think he would have been better off signing that deal in Tampa, just with your Buccaneers over there, just to save some taxes, right? Or some taxes. But how about the O-line market? I mean, we just saw huge deals come for Titus Howard and Tunsil out of the Texans. And I don't think that's going to stop. I mean, we see where the teams are valuing these players, right? And the positions that they're valuing. It's with the O linemen, the D linemen, the quarterbacks, and with the players that, you can sign like a running back. You don't know if they're going to last the 3-4 years that they need to last in order to play out that contract. And so I think they're getting weary of that. And we're seeing the 1-year deals. I think a lot of them are going to start signing 1-year deals. Like a Josh Jacobs, it's probably going to be his only option, right? And so I don't think it really comes back to them later on for the running backs, but I think those other positions are just going to continue to scream higher as these teams shuffle money away from those positions and into their pockets. Those are the MVPs, the quarterback of the league, the O-line. We both know it starts in the trenches there, and those are the guys that deserve to really get paid.
Well, and you know who deserves to get paid? I like where you were going with that whole thing with this offensive line. You know who deserves to get paid? Lawrence Taylor. He's the reason that these tackles are getting the money that they're getting, because they had to be so good, so great to be able to block a guy like that who was an absolute ferocious guy. And I was in that era with him. Carl Banks was the other side. He and I played against each other at Michigan State. Unbelievable talents. But let me tell you, Lawrence Taylor ought to get a portion of every salary of every left tackle in the NFL every single year.
I love it.
Because he made those guys what they are today, which is, hey, man, you need that tackle over there to block.
Exactly. Yep.
All right. We're going to jump to Northwestern now. And Northwestern's been a topic we've hit almost every single day, but for all the right reasons. There's a story every single day. Started off with their head coach, Pat Fitzgerald, right? That was an issue. Well, then it all of a sudden moves over. Well, we got an issue on the baseball team as well. We just hired this guy from Army. He had a bad reputation for hazing, and now he's there as well, and it's happening again at Northwestern. That was hired by the AD who's there right now, right? So you've got that. Well, then all of a sudden there's volleyball, and then there's softball, and now we've got the Big Ten Media Day, and the players have made the decision, we ain't going. So, Glenn, I throw this out to you. If they go, they can finally clear it for the rest of the season by just going, talking about it, saying, whatever it is they're comfortable saying. But, it's going to get asked. And if they're not there at Media Day, they'll be there the first day of camp. They're going to be there at the first game. They're going to be there. And if they start losing and whatever, I mean, things just start to cascade. These things will be coming up. I don't know how the AD still has his job, number one. And I'm not calling for the guy's head. I'm just saying, hey, look, you were there when all this happened. You hired one of the coaches, at least, that is part of this whole thing, this baseball coach. And Fitzgerald, how does nobody on the coaching staff know anything? And that's what they came up with when they gave him the 2-week deal. So you tell me, what should these players really do? Should they go? Maybe you'd say no, Pete. I wouldn't send them because, it's too big of the fire is too hot. I don't know, but the fire's going to stay hot for a long time.
Yeah, I think it's the worst decision they could have made. And, I'm no PR expert, but at the same time, this is something that they're now risking will trickle into the whole season, right? Like you mentioned, these players are going to get asked at some point. So you might as well have them get asked in July before they start the season, because we all know that things are forgotten pretty quickly, right? There's only going to be, we've forgotten about the Penn State. We've forgotten about the Baylor, right? All of those things have happened. And now we're at a point where Penn State's doing well. Baylor's doing well. right? And I think that's what, like you mentioned, how has nobody been fired as of yet? And I think that needs to happen in order for this program to move on, because you're going to see it just like with Baylor and like with Penn State, that this is going to continue to play a role in their season if they don't address it now. And they're going to need to do something really quick here, because, and another thing I'll point out too, is I feel bad for the other teams at Big Ten Media Day. You know, those players and those teams that now have to answer for Northwestern. What do you think about what's going on? And that's just going to continue to just, you know, throw a huge dark cloud over this program. Something huge needs to happen. I think at some point they'll finally make that decision, but so far the decisions haven't been great as of yet.
Yeah, and then you've got the discussion, and that'll be interesting. I guarantee he shows up, but Jim Harbaugh's got a lot of things going on right now, you know, at Michigan and this recruiting and this, that, and the other. But, you know, that'll all figure itself out. I just saw a quote today, by the way, from the president at Northwestern, Michael Schill. He said Derek Gragg's job is fine, which to what you were just saying and what I was saying, I don't know if that's really the right path to take, because sometimes you just got to close a door, man.
Exactly.
And if they don't close that door, how are people ever going to be able to say, well, but hold on now, these guys are still there? They're still in place? I mean, am I going to send my son or my daughter to this school after hearing about all this stuff and they're not really taking a lot of action? The only guy that's had action, and by the way, is Pat Fitzgerald. But I'll tell you, Glenn, it's amazing to me. And these lawsuits going back and forth, this is going to play out for a long time, unfortunately. And I don't think they're addressing it right.
No, not at all. It's a huge issue. And even if it's not, you know, you could argue some, you know, yeah, they didn't know, but, you know, at the end of the day, it starts at the top and somebody's got to be held accountable here. And really, you want to do what's in the best interest of the program and the kids themselves, right? Yeah. These are kids' futures that you have in your hands right now. And so you need to protect that and do something about it here. And so far, they haven't done anything.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. Well, Glenn, thanks so much for bringing us all the great stuff that you did today. And we'll maybe see John tomorrow. I think we'll see John tomorrow. I don't know. It's our last day of the week this week on Thursday, but we'll be back at 1 p.m. Eastern tomorrow with another Rebels Edge. We'll see you then. Take care.